Good afternoon. Welcome to the November meeting of the Washington State Energy Facility Site Evaluation Council. I'm Kathleen Drew, Chair, and I'm calling this meeting to order. Ms. Mastro, will you please call the roll?
Thank you, Chair Drew. For the record, this is Tammy Mastro, the Department of Commerce.
Kate Kelly, present.
Department of Ecology.
Rob Dengel, present.
Fish and Wildlife.
Hi, Mike Livingston, present.
The Department of Natural Resources representative is vacant. Utilities and Transportation Commission.
Stacy Brewster, present.
Chair, I mark you as present, and there is a quorum for the EFSEC Council.
Thank you.
Assistant Attorney General John Thompson.
Present.
Can the court reporter please identify themselves?
This is Taylor Garlinghouse, present.
Thank you. EFSEC staff, Sonia Bumpus.
Sonia Bumpus, present.
Amy Kidder.
Amy Kidder, present.
Amy Moon.
Amy Moon here.
Kyle Overton.
Kyle Overton's here.
Joan Owens.
Joan Owens is here.
Patricia Betts.
Patricia Betts, present.
Stuart Henderson.
I'm here.
Stephen Posner. Thank you, Chair Drew.
Is there anyone else who would like to identify themselves for the meeting?
Chris Sharon, Grace Harbor Energy Center.
Jeremy Smith and Mark Miller for Chehalis Generation Facility.
Owen Hurd for
Jennifer Diaz for Puget Sound Energy.
Tim McMahon, Stoll Reeves.
Karen McGaffey, Perkins Coie.
Bill Sharbaugh, Arbonne Associates.
Mackenzie Evans and Sarah DeGroot here from Grace Harbor Energy Center.
John Stroud from Timmons Group.
I heard Dave Arbaugh. Would you like to again say your association?
Sure. Arbonne Associates.
Thank you. I also heard Owen Hurd.
That's correct. Yeah, for Columbia Solar Project.
Thank you.
And Johnny Bosch, Northwest Energy Coalition.
Eric Melbardas, Kittitas Valley Wind Power Project.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the proposed agenda. This morning we sent out a revised agenda which only reordered the items on our agenda since I was concerned about the weather forecasts for this afternoon, and since we have a remote call with the high wind warning, I wanted to make sure we took care of our business action item, potential action item up front. So instead of last on the agenda, we have moved Grays Harbor Energy Center to first on the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
This is Stacy Brewster. I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Rob Dengel, second.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to the meeting minutes from the October 20th meeting. Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
This is Kate Kelly. Motion to approve the meeting minutes from October 20th.
Rob Dingle, second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion or any corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the meeting minutes from October 20th, please say aye.
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 Opposed? The minutes are approved. So moving on then to our first item on the agenda, Grays Harbor Energy Center. We will start with the operational update. Mr. Sharon.
Good afternoon, Chair Drew, council members. For the month of October, there are no non-routine items to report operationally. I will note, though, that we did submit additional information to EFSEC staff early in the month in response to follow-up requests on our site certification amendment application. And that is all.
Thank you. Any questions? Next, we have Mr. Kyle Overton with the SCA, Sepa, and PSD update.
Yes, thank you. My name is Kyle Overton. I'm the EFSEC site specialist for the Grays Harbor facility. First, for the PSD update, staff continue to work with ecology and Orca contractors to develop a draft PSD permit modification documents. Once a final draft is completed, the documents will be provided for the council for their review prior to making a decision to release the documents for public comment. For the SEPA update, there's a little more substance there. Staff have completed the State Environmental Policy Act, or SEPA review, which has been provided to the council. As SEPA review was separated for each of the two aspects of the facility's request. There's one SEPA review staff memo and one addendum for the installation of the advanced gas path package to units 1 and 2. Then there's a second SEPA review staff memo and a second addendum for extending the deadline for the commencing of construction of units 3 and 4. No new mitigation was identified as a result of this review, and the proposed change was determined to be minor in nature. Our SEPA review was based on the current condition. With the issuance of the SEPA addendum, no additional SEPA review will be done at the time of request to commence construction without the submission of another SEA amendment request. If the council wants to be able to conduct additional SEPA review at the time of construction without an SEA amendment request, then that would need to be included as an addition of the SEA. The recommendation memos and addendums have been completed and have been uploaded to the council SharePoint site to allow the council to view these documents. This completes EFSEC's responsibility to comply with SEPA. And are there any questions at this time?
Are there any questions?
This is Rob Dingle. Just to clarify, you're right about to go into units 3 and 4, correct?
Sorry, can you repeat the question again?
Oh, so this is Rob Dingle, Ecology. You're right about to discuss units 3 and 4 immediately after this, correct?
I believe Psja Psd is going to be discussing that stuff after my little presentation here.
Okay. I'm just going to ask staff to, when we start making sure we have time to talk about the two projects prospectively. So,
right.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will do that. Ms. Bumpus?
Thank you, Chair Drew. Good afternoon, council members. In light of Councilmember Dingle's question, I'm going to go ahead and start with my discussion on the schedule extension for units 3 and 4. So we'll do that first. So under direction of the council, EFSEC staff have worked to develop a staff recommendation for the Grays Harbor SCA amendment request. Staff's recommendation, I did want to note, and as Kyle Overton indicated in his SEPA summary, the staff's recommendation bifurcates Grays Harbor Energy's SCA amendment request into two separate recommendations from staff for the council to consider. One of our recommendations addresses the decision before the council on the advanced gas path package, which are the upgrades to units 1 and 2. The other staff recommendation we've developed addresses the schedule extension request for SCA Amendment 5, which authorized the construction and operation of Grays Harbor Units 3 and 4. So this was mentioned in the October meeting, but I wanted to just reiterate, I know council members are familiar with the requirements in WAC 463-66040. In that rule, it talks about what the council shall consider when it's reviewing an amendment request. It says that the council, and I'm paraphrasing, but that the council will consider whether the amendment request is consistent with 1, the intention of the original SCA, 2, applicable laws and rules, 3, public health, safety, and welfare, and 4, EFSEC's requirements related to site restoration and preservation in WAC 463-72. So moving forward into the discussion about the SCA schedule extension request for units 3 and 4. The request is to extend to 2028 the deadline for commencing construction of units 3 and 4. Staff conducted Sepa and reviewed the considerations that are in WAC 463-66040 in order to develop our recommendation. For Sepa, EFSEC reviewed and analyzed new information to determine if there were any likely significant adverse environmental impacts not covered by the impacts and mitigation analyzed in the existing Sepa document. No additional mitigation beyond what was identified for the 2010 mitigation was found, and this is documented in EFSEC's staff memo for each of the environmental topics. However, EFSEC did note during its Sepa review that the Department of Ecology is currently creating new rules per Governor Inslee's Directive 19-18 to address greenhouse gas impacts and mitigation with an overall goal of no net increase in greenhouse gas emissions. These new rules are due to be in place in September 2021, and we wanted to note these because it remains to be seen how these might impact this facility. Now, as for the other aspects of the provisions in the rule that need to be considered, there were no other proposed changes to the terms or conditions of the existing SCA, and presumably related conditions and technological upgrades to the facility would be addressed through future SCA amendments and plan approval prior to commencing construction. However, in reviewing the timeframe requirements in the SCA for the start of construction and operation, staff did conclude, in consultation with our Assistant Attorney General, John Thompson, that the extension request beyond a 10-year expiration of the SCA is not consistent with the original SCA. So that being said, and based on all those considerations, staff concluded that if the council were to approve the extension request, the council should include some conditions to ensure it can update its Sepa analysis before the start of construction. We also concluded that with an approval, there would be a need for approval by the governor, and this is pursuant to what is in WAC 463-66080. So I just wanted to put that out there before I discuss staff's recommendation. So for our recommendation, I wanted to note first that I did consider the concerns expressed by some of our council members related to questions about need and the extent of Sepa analysis for this SCA extension request. In thinking about those concerns and input from our Assistant Attorney General and the consistency with the 4 requirements in our rule, I essentially concluded that the council should deny the extension request without prejudice. This would mean that the current SCA would expire in February next year. The denial could be documented by resolution for the council to review and approve if everything looks okay. So that concludes my presentation on the extension request, and I can take questions if there are any.
Are there questions, Mr. Dingle? Did you want to ask a question at this point?
Yeah, so I did have one question. So with the updated I just want to make sure I'm getting the right project here. For the turbines 3 and 4 going through an additional Sepa process at a later time prior to construction. My question is, what additional information would you think we would be able to have that is not currently addressed in the current Sepa analysis that has been completed, in addition to taking into light, new state regulations on power use?
That's an excellent question. And before I answer, I wanted to see if Patty Betts or Kyle Overton would like to respond first.
This is Patty. I can make a few comments. So when we reviewed the proposal currently, it's based on what we know today and also what the current environmental conditions are today. And we can potentially guess or extrapolate what they might be, let's just say 6 to 8 years from now, but we don't know for sure. We do know that climate conditions, the effects of greenhouse gases are, that the effects are and our information about those effects are changing relatively rapidly. So we don't really know what the situation for sure is going to be like 6 years from now. We also don't know what technologies are going to be out there, and we don't even know, what the status of even other forms of energy, et cetera, are going to be. So it's possible that even not only the environmental, the significance of the environmental effects, the or new information, new science about environmental effects, and or even we don't even know for sure whether the rule that they're currently working on will actually be in effect. So it's possible that there may not be adequate regulations to deal with greenhouse gas emissions at that point that are, you might say, kind of out of sync with the current situation. So Sepa is there to address gaps, and we can tell you what the gaps are today, but we don't know we can't, it would be much more difficult and inaccurate for us to anticipate exactly what the gaps in existing regulations and environmental protection are 6 years from now. So that's why we do, when we have an action to take, that's why we have to kind of recheck and relook and see if there's new information that changes our analysis of environmental impacts, and or whether the changes that are being proposed by the proposal itself are creating a change in the environmental impacts. Was that helpful?
Yes, thank you very much.
Excuse me, Chair Drew, this is Karen McGaffey. May I address the council?
At this point, we're having a council discussion, so I think that we will continue with that. Thank you. So, council members, Are there other questions about either the Sepa review or the recommendation?
Chair Drew, this is Councilmember Livingston. I have a question.
Go ahead.
I'm just, so I understand the procedural differences between council approving an extension in the near term before February 21 and versus allowing the expiration of that current SCA for the sites 3 and 4 and for a later date for the Grays Harbor to come back for an amendment. I just want to understand what procedures they'll have to follow to ask for that amendment later on.
Okay, thank you. Either Ms. Bumpus or Mr. Thompson.
This is Sonia Bumpus. So John Thompson may want to weigh in, but I'll just go ahead. So if the SCA expires as it's scheduled to do next year in February 2021, my understanding is that Grays Harbor could come back with another amendment request to the council, similar to how the original amendment request was pursued when units 3 and 4 were cited by the council in 2010. So I think that that's one way that they may proceed. John, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that captures it. I mean, there is a provision in the existing SCA Amendment number 5 that describes what the certificate holder has to do if they have not commenced construction within 5 years of execution of the SCA, which so I guess that would have been well, about 5 years ago now. Anyway, it provides that the applicant has to provide additional information about changed regulatory conditions, other changes, and to propose any amendments to the SCA that are needed to address those. So it's, but it seems to envision a presumption of, that citing is allowed, and it's just a matter of updating with new information and potentially new regulatory information. But so if the extension is granted, presumably it would still be under that framework. But if the SCA is allowed to expire under its own terms, then presumably there would be something that looks more like an original application for site certification. And in that case, it would be much clearer that that the council has the authority to evaluate the request anew and to balance the considerations of need for the facility against its environmental impacts at the site where it's proposed to be constructed, and that a full Sepa review could be conducted anew at that time. So that's really the difference in a nutshell about of allowing an extension to the current SCA versus allowing it to expire, and then if need for the facility were to arise, in the next few years, then Grays Harbor Energy could come back and
basically start from scratch, as it were, with a new request for amendment or application for certification.
Mr. Livingston, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. So following up on that, Mr. Thompson, as we review the Sepa documents, the Sepa is one part of the council's decision. And actually the Sepa decision is made by the EFSEC manager and provided as information to the council. But there are other parts of a decision that the council has to weigh in either a new application or an amendment. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. The Sepa, is to inform the decision makers, in addition to the considerations that the council already takes into account in reviewing an application. Yeah.
And as you reviewed the decision by the council in 2009, was there, I think in the memo you may have shared about, or perhaps Ms. Bumpus did, if I'm trying to find the discussion that the council had at the time about a construction window.
Right. So it was actually 2011 that the council finally, or the council recommended approval, and the governor executed the SCA amendment number 5. Yeah, in the council's recommendation to the governor, in explaining the 10-year expiration date and the sort of 5-year provisions. I'll just read the quote. It said, they acknowledge that there is a benefit to the public to have permitted facilities ready to be constructed whenever it becomes known that more generation capacity is needed. However, the council recognized that, quoting now, that an unlimited build window for a proposed project is not appropriate, as over time technology or mitigation measures presented in an application may no longer be protective of environmental standards and conditions at the time the facility is constructed. And that was in Council Order number 860, which was the recommendation to the governor for approval of construction of units 3 and 4. So that was one consideration, going to the question of consistency with the original site certification agreement. And then another kind of general issue is that at the time the council recommended approval of construction of units 3 and 4, it considered need for the facilities, as it had done previously for units 1 and 2 when those were approved. And so, in other words, the council didn't just rely on the statutory statement that there's a need for abundant energy, but instead found it necessary to determine that there was a need for the project, for the specific project, in order to be able to balance that need against the impacts from it. So I think there's another question of whether it's appropriate to authorize an extension when there's not evidence of immediate need, since that was part of the consideration for the council to have recommended approval in the first instance back in 2011. So those were the couple of considerations that seemed to me were relevant to the question of whether the extension request was consistent with the intention of the original SCA.
Thank you. Are there other questions from council members? Okay, hearing none, why don't we proceed and hear the discussion about the gas path for units 1 and 2, and then we'll have a conversation about if we might want to propose any actions today.
Thank you, Chair Drew. So the installation of the Advanced Gas Path Package, or AGP, is an equipment and software improvement to combustion turbines 1 and 2, and it is expected to increase facility efficiency and output. So EFSEC staff have looked at the 4 considerations under WAC 463-66040, as I discussed in the presentation on units 3 and 4. And what we've noted is that the facility would continue to operate with units 1 and 2 to produce energy under its current SCA pursuant to the existing SCA terms and conditions. The HEP involves minor changes to the operating facility, and none of these changes substantially alter the analysis of significant impacts and alternatives in existing environmental documents that we have reviewed. So we did not identify any new impacts or new mitigation. The facility has an approved greenhouse gas mitigation plan that addresses mitigation of potential carbon dioxide emissions from the facility, and the facility's prevention of significant deterioration, or PSD permit, is actually in the process of being updated to reflect the upgrades. So for the Advanced Gas Path Package, staff's recommendation to the Council is to approve the request for the AGP package upgrade by resolution under WAC 463-66070. Staff, if the Council agrees with that recommendation, staff could prepare a draft resolution for the Council's review and approval at a subsequent meeting.
Are there any questions about that? Okay, hearing none, Council members, I'd like to have a discussion about the recommendation to bifurcate the decision into 2 pieces. What are your thoughts about that?
This is Stacy Brewster. I am in favor of bifurcating the 2 parts to this amendment. They seem different, and I believe considering them separately would work for us.
Mr. Thompson, do you think we need to have a motion on the floor for this?
I don't see it as a separate issue. I mean, I think you can just take separate actions with respect to the different 2 different aspects of the request.
Okay, thank you. Other thoughts?
Just to kind of jump onto the last comment there, I would note that it also seems, in addition to their nature, both the time frames and the certainty of the different projects going forward are very different too. Just kind of seems to lead me to the point of agreeing that the projects would benefit from being bifurcated.
Thank you. So at this point, why don't we start with the advanced gas path? Is there a motion on that part of the SCA to perhaps, let's see, direct the staff to draft a resolution for our next meeting approving that part of the SCA that part of the amendment.
Chair Drew, this is Kate Kelly. So I move that the council request staff to prepare a resolution that would support amending the SCA to allow for the advanced gas path package to become part of the operations of units 1 and 2. I don't know if I said that right, but
I think that works. Thank you.
Okay.
Stacy Brewster, I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. So now, is there, let's discuss the extension of the construction window. Council members, is there more information that you would like to have? Would you like to would you like to have a motion to follow the recommendation of this, not to follow the, take the recommendation of the staff and not allow the extension of the construction period? What direction would you like to go on this?
So, Madam Chair, this is Kate Kelly. And first of all, I would like to just extend my appreciation to staff and to John for providing us all the support during this process. This has been, I really appreciate the amount of information we've gotten in response to our questions and just to help inform our decision on this. The question I have at this point, it's not for more information, it's just what does this look like? Are we asking for, are we needing to do a resolution? If we were going to accept staff's recommendation, is that a resolution to deny the request, or how does that work? Or do we just not take action on it and it expires by its own terms?
Mr. Thompson, can you help with that?
Yeah, certainly. My recommendation is that what you would do if you want to take staff's recommendation is to, and Ms. Bumpus can correct me if she sees this differently, but I think the way to go is to direct staff to prepare a resolution denying the request for an extension of the construction deadline. So yeah, I think you need to, again, this goes back to the bifurcation and the need to memorialize, I think, in different decisions, your decision with respect to the advanced gas path for units 1 and 2, and then another another decision memorialized in a different resolution that denies the request from Grays Harbor Energy for an extension of the SCA. That'd be my recommendation.
Thank you.
And this is Sonia Bumpus. I agree with John's recommendation.
This is Rob Dangle. I'd like to make a motion. I'll get this right. So make a motion for staff to prepare a resolution to deny the Grays Harbor extension of generators construction on 3 and 4 without prejudice.
Thank you.
Kate Kelly, I second.
Okay. Discussion? I think the information that we have been provided, particularly in the context of the council resolution and recommendation to the governor from 2011 regarding unlimited construction windows, the fact that with a new SCA should be taken into consideration. It doesn't deny the ability for Grays Harbor Energy to come back when there is actually a project in the offing to bring that with a site certification agreement amendment to the council. But at that point in time, the council would consider the need as well as any revised environmental regulations that would be enforced at the time. So that is my comment on the subject. Are there other comments?
This is Stacy Brewster. I would like to agree with your comments. My concern is mostly with new rules that are being developed at this time, and I think the ability to consider it when a project is imminent is more important.
Thank you. Okay, at this point, all those in favor of the motion to direct staff to draft a resolution denying the extension of the construction period for units 3 and 4, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all. And thank you, yes, to staff and to our certificate holder for all the work done on this project, on this amendment. Okay, moving on in our facility updates. Kittitas Valley Wind Power Project.
Good afternoon, Chair Drew, EFSEC Council and staff. This is Eric Davis with EDP Renewables for the Kittitas Valley Wind Power Project. We had nothing non-routine to report for the period.
Thank you. Ms. Diaz, Wild Horse Wind Power Project.
Yes, thank you, Chair Drew, council members and staff. This is Jennifer Diaz representing Puget Sound Energy for the Wild Horse Wind Facility. I have no non-routine updates for the month of October.
Thank you. Moving on to Chehalis Generation Facility, Mr. Smith.
Good afternoon, Chair Drew, council and staff. This is Jeremy Smith, the environmental analyst for Chehalis Generation Facility. The Chehalis facility does not have any non-routine items to report for the month of October at this time.
Thank you. Desert Claim Wind Power Project, Ms. Moon.
Good afternoon, Council Chair Drew and council members. As Chair Drew said, this is Amy Moon providing an update for the Desert Claim Project. EFSEC staff continue to coordinate with Desert Claim. However, there are no project updates at this time.
Thank you. Columbia Solar Project update, Ms. Kidder.
Thank you, Chair Drew. Good afternoon, Chair and Council members. For the record, my name is Amy Kidder. The certificate holder continues to update EFSEC staff on their pre-construction activity. We have no further project updates at this time.
Thank you. WNP 1 and 4 and also Columbia Generating Station, Mr. Whitehead. Or Ms. Moon?
Okay. I believe that there was nothing non-routine to report, and the Columbia Generating Station continues to address the COVID response by having non-essential employees work away from the office. That's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. With no other business to come before us at this point in time, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much.
Council Chair Drew. So for WNP 1 and 4,
yes,
that also gets reported by Kip Whitehead. There's also no non-routine items to report for that.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Okay. Now, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.